This conference will now be recorded.
Yesterday, we were talking about exception, and we also understood how to handle the exception, and we understood what are the different types of exception. So, we have two types of exception: runtime exception and checked exception. Whenever the checked exceptions are raised, the compiler will force us to handle the exception before we compile the code.
I guess you need to share the screen again.
Oh, sorry. Okay, the main method. And let me create the object of file. Demo.txt. Create new file. See, it is throwing an exception, unhandled exception, that is IO exception, so we should handle it. Try catch IO exception. Main started. Main ended. Okay, sorry. Right. File created. I'll just print like this. So it is telling file created. Let me go and refresh the project. So you can see here demo.txt got created. Okay, see, when I was calling this method, create new file method, it was throwing one checked exception. Whenever the method is throwing a checked exception, it is mandatory for a caller to handle that exception. How to handle the exception? Using try and catch block. Using try and catch block. Same thing. I will have it here. Okay. Now we see that line number 12 is not compiling. It is giving a compile time error. Let us see what it is telling. Unhandled exception type IO. Okay. Any exception that are raised at the time are called as checked exception or exception. Okay, any exceptions that are raised at the compile time are called as compile time exceptions or checked exceptions. Any exception that are raised at the runtime are called as unchecked exception or runtime exception. Okay, whenever the checked exceptions are raised, whenever the checked exceptions are raised, okay, so whenever the checked exceptions are raised, we can handle them in two ways. One is using what? Try and catch block. Whenever the checked exceptions are raised, we can handle them in two ways. What is that? Using try and catch block. Or else, what we can do is we can throw that exception using throws keyword. Okay, see now the line number 23 is compiling. If I remove this, line number 23 won't compile. Whenever the checked exceptions are raised, okay, we can handle them in two ways. One is using try catch block and one more is using throwing that exception using throws keyword. Raised, we can handle two ways. Try and catch block or okay. Clear? So how to handle the checked exception? Using try and catch block or using throws keyword. Clear? Now I'll create one class called as math operation. Then I will write one method void divide int a comma int b till div started div ended A by B is the result. Main started, main ended. Let's create the object of mathOp, and I will call the div method. First 10, comma 2. Okay, now let us run this program. So main started, div started, 5, div ended. Let us see how it worked. Main started, then we are creating a math object and we are calling a div method. So control goes to div method. In div method, div started, A by B operation is performed. We are passing 10, comma 2. A is 10, B is 2. 10 by 2 is 5. Then div ended. Control comes back to here and then it is telling main ended. Sure, no, this is what happening. Class test C, public static, void main, class mathOp, and we have our div method. So anyways, we are creating a mathOp object. Okay. Okay, see m.div means obviously I'm creating a math object, but I just want to anyways, I'll write it. Okay, math object got created and we are calling the div method. M.div 10, comma 2. So div method is called, control comes here, 10, comma 2. So A is 10, B is 2, 10 by A by B. So 10 by 2, what is the answer? 5. 5 will be the output for us. Now what I do, m.div 20, comma 0. Control comes here, A is 20, B is 0. 20 by 0. What will happen here? 20 by 0. Abnormal operation. So what happens? Arithmetic exception object gets created. Are we handling the exception in this line? No, exception is not handled. So what will happen? The exception will be thrown to the caller. The exception will be thrown to the caller. Whenever there is an exception, and if the exception is not handled inside the method, the exception will be thrown to the caller. Okay, so exception is thrown to the caller. Are we handling the exception inside the main method? No. Now, this exception is thrown to the caller of main method. Who is the caller of main method? JVM. Okay, who created the exception? JVM, for whom we are throwing the exception back to the JVM. So what JVM will do? JVM will terminate the execution whenever the exception reaches the JVM. Okay, so the execution gets terminated. Clear? So what we should do? We should handle the exception before the exception reaches the JVM. Okay, now let us see. Okay, I'll make 10 by 2 first. Main started, div started, 5, div ended, main ended. Now I'll make 10 by 0. Main started, div started, 10 by 0. Let us go here, 10 by 0, arithmetic exception is raised. Are we handling it? No. So control comes to main method, exception is thrown back here. Are we handling the exception in main method? No. So exception is thrown to JVM. JVM handled the exception and it is terminating the execution. Now what we shall do, we shall handle the exception in the main method. Exception caught at main. Now let us run it. See, main started, div started, exception caught at main and main ended. So what happened? There was an exception in a line number 9. Okay, first compiler check. Are they handling the exception inside the div method? Are they handling the exception inside the div method? No. So what happens? Compiler will throw the exception to the caller. So now the exception came back here. Is the main method handling the exception? Yes. So is there a catch block to catch the exception thrown? Yes. So then exception will be caught in the main method. Main end method terminated normally. Main method terminated normally. But div method terminated abnormally. Div method terminated abnormally.
Hey Vivek,
Yeah.
what does JVM stand for?
Java Virtual Machine.
Okay.
So he is the one who run our program. Okay, JVM runs our program.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other question, guys?
You didn't show the example of the throws. So how does actually it works?
Throws
Yeah.
will always throw the exception. Like whenever the exception is raised, right? For
Mhm.
example, here. Okay, so exception is not raised. File created. Let me run it. So it is telling file created. No exception is raised. Throws
Mhm.
will not simply throw the exception. If the exception is raised in the line number 25,
Mhm.
okay, compiler check. Is there a try catch block? No. Is there a throws keyword? Yes. Then it throws that exception. To whom? To the caller. Who is the caller of the main method? JVM. To the JVM, it throws the exception. What happens when the exception is thrown to JVM? JVM terminates the execution. See, now I'm giving some M drive. Main started. Exception is thrown. Okay, see, main method is not ending normally because the exception is thrown to JVM. JVM handles the exception, hence it terminates the execution.
Okay.
Clear? See, whenever the checked exception is raised, you have two ways to handle it. Either using try catch block or throwing the exception using the throws keyword. Whichever the way you want, you can handle it.
And this throws keyword always used in the main method?
Any method, not only main method, any method.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll come for that. Anyways, we are coming to that example. We'll come in
Okay, thanks.
very soon.
Because here you used math op class under in test C. So this both the classes are under folder day WI. So if I have this math operation class under say day 1, can I still use this under another folder?
Folder, are you talking about project or the folder?
Yeah, projects. So
No,
suppose day 1 classes
no,
can I use under day W
no,
classes?
no. Directly you can't. What you should do is you should convert this file into a jar. I'll show you. Export jar. Okay, you can convert this day 1 project into a jar file, and then you should come and add the jar to your current project. If you go here, libraries, add jars, you should add it, then you can use it. Directly, no. With import, you can't. With import, you can deal only with the files which are present inside your project.
Okay. Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Yeah. So now what we shall do, so anyways, we shall run it once. Main method ended. What about the div method? Div method is not ending. Why? Because there is an exception in line number 9. Whenever there is an exception inside a method, clear? Fine. The lines which are below the line which is throwing the exception will not get executed. So these lines won't get executed. So what I do now, I will handle the exception here only. Exception caught at dev. Now let me run it. See, exception caught at dev, dev ended, main ended. Clear? Understood, everyone? Clear. Exception caught at dev. So there is no exception thrown to the main method. So there is no exception thrown to the main method. Clear? And this catch block will not get executed. If the exception is thrown to main method, then this catch block get executed. If there is no exception thrown, then it won't get caught here. Clear? Clear? Whenever the exception is handled inside the method, no exception will be thrown to the caller. Clear? When does the exception will be thrown to the caller? Only when the method is not handling the exception, then only the exception will be thrown to the caller. Clear? Now, someone tell us that whenever the exception is handled by the method, or if the caller requests us, hey, please throw the exception whatever you caught. Please throw the exception whatever you caught. So means the main method will tell the div method, hey, please throw the exception what you are catching. Which exception the div is catching? Div method? Arithmetic exception. Now we can throw that exception using throw keyword. Using throw keyword. Throw the exception using throw keyword. We can throw the exception to a caller using throw keyword. Throw keyword can be written inside the method or constructor body. Throws is a keyword which is written along with method nation. Okay, definition means like this. This is the method definition where we are writing the method name and all, right? So throws keyword will be always written with method definition, whereas throw keyword will be written inside the method body. Now let us run this. Main started, div started, exception caught at div, and exception is caught at main also. Why exception is caught at main? Because after catching the exception, we are throwing the exception even to the main method. In the main method, they are catching it. So even exception is caught at the main. Okay, then main ended. So now you might think, boss, what about the div? It's not getting ended? Yes. Any line which are written after the throw keyword will not get executed. Okay, any line which are written after the throw keyword will not get executed. Any code after the throw keyword. Any code which is written after the throw keyword does not get executed. Any code which is written after the throw keyword does not get executed. Hence, we need to keep that code inside the finally block. So what we should do now? We should keep this code inside the finally block. And now let us run. See, dev ended. Clear? So if you write any code inside the finally block, that code will execute even after executing the try block or even after executing the catch block. So this code is going to execute always. Clear? So whenever we write a code inside a finally block, it will execute even after try block or even after catch block or even after throwing the exception. Clear? Finally is a block in exception handling which get executed even after throwing the exception, even after throwing the exception, or even after executing the try block, or even after the catch block. Okay, finally block is a block in exception handling which gets executed even after throwing the exception, or even after executing the try block, or even after executing the catch block. So now what I do is just to 10 by 2. Let us see will the finally block execute or not. See, div ended. So is the finally block getting executed? Yes. Is there a catch block getting executed? No, because there is no exception inside the try block. So then control comes to finally block and execute that code. Understood? So why do we need a finally block? If we want to write any code which need to be executed even after throwing an exception, okay, so then we need a finally block which is going to execute always without fail. Okay, clear everyone? Any doubt on this?
I got a different question.
Yeah, tell me.
So whenever I see that you are creating a package, you are putting the name like something dot something, right? For an
Yeah.
example, you have com dot Vikas. So is
Mhm.
there a specific instruction to put create the name, or you can do put whatever you want to?
Generally, there is a rule to do that. Okay, I will explain you that rule. Okay, please remember me this once again once we complete exception. Okay,
Okay. Hopefully I'll
I'll
remember.
yeah. Anyways, I do remember, but yeah, still.
Okay.
Okay, if I
Okay.
forget, any one of you can remember. Okay,
Okay.
just tell me like say the rules for package name. Okay, I'll just tell you what it is.
Okay.
According to Java, there is no rule. Okay, but according to industry, there is a rule. According to Java, you can just make anything like crazy.vikas. Something like
Uh,
that. Whatever.
yeah, I'm asking for the Java instruction.
No. With respect to Java, no. With respect
Okay.
to Java, there is no rule. Okay, whatever the package name you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it will like just take it like that. Okay, Humpty dot sad dot on the wall. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, any
Okay.
package name. So that
Okay.
will reflect automatically here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your package name can be anything.
Okay. Now, I'm aware of the industry structure, but just trying to understand the Java structure.
Sorry.
I'm familiar with the industry structure, like how the industry naming goes on, but for the Java, my question was more likely about the Java structure.
No. Java don't have any rule like that. Java don't for class name also. Java don't have any restrictions.
Okay. Thank you.
Clear everyone? Any other questions? So I will create one history class. Do it is my method. Test D. Main started. Main ended. Okay. Now what I will do, start, do it, ended. So what I do, I create the object of history. Now let me run it. So no problem, main started, do it, ended, main ended. Now let's go to history. What I do here is I'll create the object of file, f is equals to new file. myhistory.txt, f dot create new file, f dot create new file. Now, why are we getting an exception here? Because it is a checked exception. We need to handle it before compiling the code. Now, let us see how to handle the exception. Using what? Try catch. Sorry, not able to create the file. Okay, here I will tell it. Okay, main started, do it started, file created, do it ended, main ended. Working as expected, right? So no problem at all. Now what I do is I will give some wrong path. Now let's execute. Main started, do it started, sorry, not able to create the file, do it ended, main ended. Right? So as expected. So exception is raised inside, is thrown in line number 16. So the catch block is going to catch that exception. So only we are getting that, sorry, not able to create the file. Yes or no? Now I will change this. Okay, so now look, there is an exception in line number 15. I have a checked exception. Now I can surround it using try catch block, or I can throw it using throws declaration. So I will throw it. See, now I'm throwing the exception. Please observe this testd.java file. Okay, I will save it. See, started to giving us the error. To see why. So you are calling one method, which is that method to do it. Go to that method. What that method is doing? That method is throwing you one checked exception. Whenever we are calling the method, and if that method is throwing any exception using the throws keyword, if that method is throwing any exception using throws keyword, as a caller, it is mandatory that you should handle that exception. Okay, whenever we are calling a method, and if that method is throwing any checked exception using the throws keyword, it is mandatory for us to handle that exception. Okay, so now what we can do, we can handle the exception using what? Exception caught at main. Here's the exception caught at main. Anyways, do it is not getting ended. Why? Because there is an exception in line number 15, because we are giving the wrong path. When it tries to create a file, it tries to find that path, but the path is not existing. So hence it is going to throw us the exception. Clear? Whenever the method is throwing any checked exception using throws keyword, it is mandatory for us to handle it. Okay, it is mandatory for the caller to handle it. Whoever calls the do it method, anyone, by creating a history object, whoever calls the do it method, they have to handle the IO exception. IO exception. Okay, so it is a checked exception, so we can handle it in two ways. One is using what? Try catch block, what we have done right now. Another way is, let us see what it is. So let's go here. It is telling unhandled exception, that is IO exception, add throws declaration, or surround with try catch block. What you want? If you want to handle it using try catch block, handle it. Or else even you can throw it using throws declaration. You can throw it using what? Throws declaration. Okay. Whenever we call a method which is throwing an exception using throws keyword, it is mandatory for us to handle that exception. We can handle that exception using try and catch block, or we can throw that exception using throws keyword. We can throw that exception using what? Throws keyword. Clear? Do you have any doubt? Clear? Fine. Okay. So these are the main things with respect to exception handling. Okay. Exception is a class in Java. Exception is a class in Java. Exception class has been extended by many other exception classes. IO exception, SQL exception class not found exception interrupt exception. Like this, there are thousands of other classes which is extending the exception class. We have one more class called as runtime exception class. Okay, runtime exception. This class has been extended by many other classes like null pointer exception. It is a full word, okay, exception, but I'm just writing shortcut. Null pointer exception, array index out of bounds exception. It's a full word, but I'm just writing a shortcut. Okay, class cast exception. Class cast exception. You remember that when we were trying to do direct down casting, okay, it used to throw us the class cast exception. Okay, then arithmetic exception. Like that, there are many classes which extends the runtime exception class. Any class which extend an exception class are the checked exception. Any class which extends the runtime exception class are unchecked exception. See, null pointer exception is a runtime exception, means unchecked exception. Array index out of bound exception is a runtime exception, means unchecked exception, because they were coming at the runtime, not at the compile time. We saw that IO exception, it was coming at compile time. So it is a checked exception. Okay. Any class which extends the exception class are called as checked exception. Any class which extends the runtime exception class are called as unchecked exception. We have one more class called as error. We have one more class called as what? Error. So error and exception class are the child class of throwable. Are the child class of what? Throwable. Throwable is a child class of our what? Object class. So this is the hierarchy of exception. Okay, see now tell me, can we tell error is an exception or exception is an error? No. Right? There is no relationship between exception and error. Okay, exception is generally caused by code failure. Your code fails to execute something, then the exceptions are caused. Errors are caused by system failure. Errors are caused by system failure, like heap memory full error, stack memory overflow error. Okay, these are the errors which are caused by system failure. Exceptions are generally caused by the application failure. Okay, errors are caused by system failure, applications are caused by, exceptions are caused by application failure. Exceptions can be handled and we can overcome, whereas errors cannot be handled, we can't overcome the errors. Clear everyone? Any doubt on this? Clear guys? So this is all about exceptions. So the mainly thing is how to handle the exception is very, very important for us. Clear? Okay. See, package name. In Java, you can give any name as your package name. But when it comes to industry, we have some standards what we need to follow. If it is a commercial project, your package name should start with com. If it is a commercial project, your package name should start with what? Com. If it is related to any organization, your package name should start with org. Okay, your package name should start with org. org.qspiders. Like that. If your package name is, if your project is related to any education system, like for example, you are developing any project to a school or a college, your package name should start with edu. Edu dot, okay, Stanford dot staff. Okay, like that. If your project is related to any government office, so then your package, if your application is related to any government office, then your package names start with GOV. So this is the rule what industry follow whenever they are giving the package name. Okay, they'll start with com or org or edu or gov with respect to the project what they are doing it for. Okay, commercial projects are like your Walmart, Amazon, right? So they are the commercial projects. Organization projects is, for example, QSpider related projects. They are the organization related projects. Education, like any of their educational institutes. Government, like is your bank, government banks, or any government sectors, government offices. So that will be the package name. Clear? Do you have any doubt, guys? Okay, fine, guys. So then we should catch up tomorrow. So we shall start up with the new concept. Okay, so that is with our collection framework, which is very, very important. Okay, fine, guys. See you tomorrow. Thank you.